we're looking at a teacher here who seems to show indication that she's a sexual predator.
A Missouri teacher is now charged with attempted rape after officials say she invited a 16-year-old student over to her home, hoping to have sex with the boy while her husband was away.
It's still a developing story. We have such limited information, but based on what we have, it seems such a strong case against her.
25-year-old Ricky Lynn Laughlin now faces 6 charges in connection with the attempted rape of the 16-year-old boy. The high school teacher in St. James, Missouri, about an hour and a half southwest of St. Louis, is accused of sending the boy illicit photos and videos via Snapchat, later telling him to delete the pics because she could go to jail if they were found. For that, she's charged with tampering with a witness and tampering with physical evidence. Trial attorney Catherine Lizardo tells us that fact alone makes it a tough case for Laughlin's team to defend.
I don't really see a valid defense for her right now. Of course, it's he said, she said situation again. But if the victim did not delete any of the snapshot or had some remaining in there, then that would be definitely used against him. And we've seen investigators, law enforcement, in other law and crime trials that we've covered that they can subpoena Snapchat or try to get some of those information back, even though they've been deleted. So we don't know if that's a possibility here with all the technical issues with the Snapchat after you delete it. But also that because she was giving that instruction, so she can't really have a defense that I did not know. Then why would you instruct someone to delete it and say specifically that I might go to jail? That is, for me, a clear indication of intent, knowing that you are interacting with a minor, inappropriate behavior as well, such as possessing and promoting these inappropriate pornographic materials, because she was instigating him to exchange nude photos of each other. That's why when she told the victim to delete the Snapchat, that one of her charges is tampering with evidence.
On October 19th, a major with the Marys County Sheriff's Office began investigating Laughlin after getting a tip from a detective in nearby Phelps County. The next day, officials spoke with the 16-year-old boy, who confirmed he'd received nude pictures and videos from Laughlin. The boy also said he sent the teacher photos of himself twice. She's since been charged with furnishing pornographic material to a minor and promoting obscenity.
Obscenity is a legal term of art. It means that pornographic material goes under that category. It's an unprotected speech with freedom of speech. If you're promoting obscenity, that will not be protected by law. So clearly here it's not, and they called it obscenity because it is obscene and pornographic. Promoting obscenity, what that means is that the teacher was trying to distribute and was in possession of a pornographic material for a minor, and knowing that that the victim is a minor.
Investigators also say Laughlin asked the boy to come over to her house on October 14th. She said her husband was out and hoped to have sex with the boy. He told investigators he made up an excuse not to come because he felt too uncomfortable. For this, Laughlin has been charged with second-degree attempted statutory rape.
The charge against her is attempted statutory rape. Statutory rape is different from rape because the word statutory means that it involves minor. Here it's in Missouri, and in Missouri, the age for legal consent is 17 years old. Here, the victim is 16 years old, the 16-year-old student. So he cannot legally consent to any sexual activity. That's why it's called statutory rape, because if there is sexual intercourse with a minor that's 16 and under, that's considered statutory rape. Here, it's an attempted statutory rape because my understanding is there was no actual activity of sexual intercourse between the two. Luckily, the law enforcement were able to intervene before it escalated to that. But still, attempted statutory rape is very serious, and the penalty depends on the age difference between the perpetrator and the victim. Here, because the teacher is 21 years old, I believe 24 years old is her actual age, and the victim is 16 years old, the penalty is up to 5 years of imprisonment or fine. But if the teacher is considered a persistent sexual predator, then that would be an aggravated cause for an increased sentence.
As Lizardo explains, attempted rape is actually a lesser charge than second-degree rape.
Whenever it's attempted, it's a lesser charge than the actual statutory rape. So the penalty is much more severe because of the actual act that is trying to be prevented. Again, here I am just very grateful for the law enforcement that they acted very quickly, because my understanding is they received a tip that there might be inappropriate behavior between a student and a teacher. Immediately, they interviewed the student and then the teacher, who is here the defendant, Ricky Laughlin.
Investigators spoke with Laughlin. She initially denied the relationship altogether. Eventually, though, she admitted to speaking with a boy via Snapchat, but said she didn't realize he was underage. Lizardo says that defense doesn't add up.
They interviewed the 16-year-old boy, and they uncovered from his interview that the teacher and the student were exchanging nude photos or inappropriate photos by Snapchat. And the victim even mentioned to the police that the teacher told him that he should delete his Snapchat chats with the teacher because she could go to jail. That for me is an indication that she knew what she was doing was wrong. That any defense as to, oh, I didn't know he was a minor, because again, he's 16 and in Missouri, the legal age of consent is 17. So there might be a possibility of misconstruing a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old. But here, I think based on what the witness is saying, that he was instructed to do by the teacher, which is to delete these inappropriate nude photos, that she knew what she was doing. And also, if you're a teacher, even if you cannot figure out if the student is 17 or 16, that is still inappropriate to do.
Because Laughlin is up against a boatload of evidence, Lizardo suspects she'll take a plea deal.
Most likely she will, with what we've heard so far. And it's still a developing story. We have such limited information, but based on what we have, it seems such a strong case against her. So a plea deal would definitely be in her favor. Again, we don't know what else she would claim as to how she could not have known, because this is all about intent. The charges against her are intent, knowing that the victim is a minor and knowing that she is trying to distribute pornographic, obscene materials to a minor and trying to solicit that minor into illegal sexual activity as well. But also, because she's a teacher, the ramification as to obviously her teaching credentials and to the school district where this is happening will really be resounding in that community, I'm sure.
After her arrest, Laughlin's bond was set at $100,000. Lizardo says it could have been even higher.
I think it is depending on the circumstances that was involved. Quite frankly, as a mom, I think that's not enough, but it is a bond that was set for her. I'm not sure if she actually posted the bond or she was capable, meaning financially, to post the bond, but that was set, and I wish it was higher.
As the investigation continues, Lizardo expects Laughlin's husband will be interviewed, as will school officials.
Definitely, they will reach out to him and also interview the children. I don't know how old her children are. I hope it's not somewhere close to the age of the victims. Of course, she's 24, so that's very unlikely. But still, whatever age her children are, that the investigators would have to look into that too if they are in any danger as to her. We're looking at a teacher here who seems to show indication that she's a sexual predator. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have multiple victims to be a predator, but based on her intent, and you mentioned that she was planning to bring the victim over to her house, there's a lot of premeditation and planning involved with the many things she was doing, such as trying to groom him. That's one of the first steps of sexual predators. And for our viewers, that's just something to keep in mind, that sexual predators tend to groom their victims by luring them into conversations that are innocent, and then it snowballs into something much, much worse. Victims' parents will also be interviewed here to find out, to what extent they've seen a difference with their child. And the school administrators as well should be investigated and interviewed in terms of how far back has this happened? Has the defendant done this to any other student? Because we don't know if this victim was her first or subsequent victims. I hope there are no other victims out there, but this school and this school district need to pay attention now and really try to figure out if there are other students that have been victimized by other teachers, and make sure that they have appropriate safeguards for that.
But Laughlin's case doesn't stand alone. In recent weeks, Law&Crime Network has covered at least 4 separate cases where a woman in a position of authority allegedly abused a child or children. At the start of the 2023 school year, we told you about 38-year-old Alyssa McCommon, a Tennessee teacher who's accused of raping a 13-year-old former student in her own home. Investigators say she used video games and social media apps to communicate with students. As we reported, she was booked into jail but later released on $25,000 bond. McCommon's now back in jail, though, and being held without bond after investigators say she used an unknown number to speak with the boy while out on bond, saying he'd regret going to police. She now faces additional charges of harassment, stalking, and coercion. After her second arrest, prosecutors played a voice recording in court alleging McCommon is now pregnant with the boy's child. Next, we reported on Peyton Shires, the case out of Ohio. The 24-year-old newly credentialed social worker is accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy she was counseling. While on the phone with the boy's mother, Shires admitted to the assault as police listened in. When investigators searched the boy's phone, they found videos of him and Shires having sex. She was arrested early this month and now faces charges of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. And just this week, we reported on the case of 24-year-old Cassidy Krause, an Iowa teacher accused of having relations with at least 3 underage students. According to officials in Manning, Iowa, Krause allegedly sent explicit photos and molested and sexually abused 13 and 14-year-old students. While it seems like a new pattern we've been reporting on in recent weeks, forensic psychologist Dr. John Delatorre says the abuse of power isn't new.
Yeah, the only reason why we're seeing these cases now is because of the technology that is available, where there's more communication about sexuality and sex. All of that stuff is happening now. But again, it was probably happening at the same rate or higher early on, and the technology just hadn't caught up. I mean, it really did take someone saying that this abuse was happening. And even at that time, people probably didn't believe that the abuse was happening, because who could believe that a woman was engaging in these kinds of acts? Right now, that's a product of societal myths and other things like that. So what I'm saying is that it has happened. It's been happening for a long period of time. It's only now that evidence is being rendered and developed and easily accessed because of technology.
In fact, in all 4 cases, the women used social media to communicate with their alleged victims.
I think it's getting caught more. I don't think that the rate of it is any more. I think the rate of teachers abusing students is pretty constant. I think what we see now is that it's getting caught more because evidence, as you said, evidence is out there more often than it was in the 90s, 80s, 70s, and early on. So I think it has a little bit more to do with people having the vulnerability of having all of this information leak out as opposed to earlier times when that wasn't the case.
Delatory also says the age of the accused perpetrators plays a factor. In 3 of the 4 cases, the suspect is in her early 20s.
I think, there's always this aspect of can you communicate with someone and have the same sort of thought processes when it comes to the topics that you communicate about. So someone who's like 30 or 40 years older isn't really going to have a communication style that's relevant to the abuser. So they have to find a different way of getting that victim to engage in the behavior. So if you're younger, you can easily have comments and conversations that the child, the victim, is already having. So you can find it's more of an easier way to get a victim by being younger and being able to communicate with them. And that's really what the goal is. You have to communicate first, and then you can abuse the victim.
As for Laughlin, she's been placed on administrative leave from her school district. She's set to appear in court on November 20th. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.